The golden age of Netheril began without anyone realizing it had started. There was no proclamation, no coronation, no single moment when the nation passed from one era into another. It was more like the slow brightening of dawn, a gradual intensification of light and warmth that transformed everything so slowly that those living through it barely noticed, until they looked back and realized the world they inhabited bore almost no resemblance to the one their grandparents had known. By negative 2207 in the Dial Reckoning, a new flying enclave was being raised into the sky every single year. Every 12 months, somewhere in the territory of Netheril, an arcanist of sufficient power would select a mountain peak, sever it from the earth, invert the entire mass of rock, affix a methaller to its base, and raise it into the sky. The engineering was astonishing. The magical expenditure was enormous, and it happened every year, as regularly as the turning of the seasons. The sky above Netheril grew crowded. Dozens of enclaves rode the air currents in slow, stately orbits, their shadows tracking across the landscape below, like the hands of enormous clocks. Each enclave was unique, a reflection of the personality and obsessions of its founding arcanist. The enclave of Sakhors was ruled by Zolan the Maker, who achieved something no other arcanist had managed. He infused his enclave's methaller with a rudimentary sentience, giving it self-awareness and vastly increasing its power. The enclave of Joktaleg suffered a methaller malfunction that permanently polymorphed all its nobles into Voadkin, wood giants, who then withdrew from the rest of the empire in shame. The enclave of Delia was originally an island inhabited by elves and druids, lifted into the sky by Lady Polaris, who tried to maintain its natural character before it was inevitably assimilated into the broader Netherese culture. Each city was a world unto itself, and each told a story about the limitless ambition and occasional recklessness of the arcanists who built them. But the Golden Age was not merely about flying cities. It was about the systematic exploration of every frontier that magic could reach, and several that it probably should not have. The Netherese discovered Chronomancy during this era, the magic of time itself. The Chronomancers were secretive even by arcanist standards, but their research was profound. They developed spells that could slow the passage of time within a defined area, or accelerate it, or, in the most dangerous and closely guarded experiments, reverse it entirely. The birth of the legendary Chronomancer in the year negative 2207 marked the beginning of the Golden Age itself, as if the mastery of time were the threshold beyond which all other achievements became possible. Emboldened by their mastery of the physical world, the Netherese turned their attention outward, far outward. Using flying vessels powered by mythallars and enchanted with navigation spells of extraordinary complexity, they launched expeditions beyond Toril itself. These spelljammers sailed not through water or air, but through the crystalline void of realm space, the great sphere of energy that enclosed Toril and its sister planets. The Netherese spelljammers ventured into this void, mapping planets and moons, cataloging the strange phenomena of deep space, and making contact with beings from beyond their world. One such contact nearly ended the program permanently. Beyond the boundaries of Toril's crystal sphere, the Netherese encountered the Illithids, the Mind Flayers. These alien creatures with their bulbous heads and writhing tentacles and their terrible psionic powers attacked the spacefaring wizards on sight. Several Netherese spelljamming vessels were destroyed. The survivors brought back accounts that terrified even the most confident arcanists, and the decision was made to abandon spelljamming as too dangerous and too expensive. The stars would remain unreached, It was one of the very few times in Netheril's history that the nation collectively decided that a frontier was not worth the cost of crossing it. They turned their ambitions downward instead. In the depths of the Sea of Fallen Stars, Netheril's arcanists established 3 undersea colonies, crystal-domed settlements that came to be known as Deep Netheril. These subaqueous outposts were marvels of magical engineering, enclosed in transparent barriers that held back millions of tons of seawater while maintaining breathable air within. The colonists explored the ocean floor, cataloged marine life, and, in a decision that would have fateful consequences, enslaved the Cerosian aquatic elves who inhabited the surrounding waters. The high mages of Ariselmalir, the great undersea elven kingdom, responded with devastating force. A catastrophic undersea explosion, powered by elven high magic, destroyed all 3 colonies in a single cataclysm, so violent that it created the Serlund and Selgaunt Bays. Geographical features that persist to this day, silent monuments to Netheril's overreach and elven wrath. Deep Netheril was erased. The Netheril's characteristically treated the loss as a setback rather than a lesson. It was during the Golden Age that the discovery of Chardalin transformed yet another branch of magical research. In negative 1205 of the Dala Reckoning, miners working beneath the plane of standing stones in Low Netheril uncovered deposits of a mineral unlike anything previously known. Chardalin was a magic-absorbing crystalline substance that could store and redirect arcane energy in ways that ordinary materials could not. The discovery opened up an entirely new field of study, gem magic, and the arcanists threw themselves into it with their customary enthusiasm. Chardalin-infused items became some of the most powerful and sought-after magical creations of the era, and the mines beneath the plane of standing stones became among the most strategically important locations in the empire. But for all the brilliance of the Golden Age, there were shadows gathering at its edges, shadows that the arcanists, dazzled by their own light, could not see. In negative 681 of the Dala Reckoning, a group of arcanists conducted an experiment that would have consequences far beyond what they intended. They traveled to the demiplane of nightmares, a shadowy subrealm connected to the far realm, that vast and alien dimension of madness that existed beyond the boundaries of known reality. What they found there, and what found them, is not entirely clear. The arcanists who returned were changed. They came to be known as the Night Parade, and their experiences in the demiplane of nightmares had altered them in ways that were subtle but deeply unsettling. The Night Parade would persist as a mysterious and feared organization for centuries, a living reminder that some doors, once opened, cannot be fully closed. And then, in negative 553 of the Dala Reckoning, the arcanists of Netheril discovered the Plane of Shadow. The Plane of Shadow was a dark mirror of the material world, a realm of muted colors and distorted geography, where the familiar features of Teril existed in twisted, half-recognizable forms. Mountains were taller and sharper. Forests were denser and darker. Rivers ran with water that was not quite water. And the native inhabitants, the Malagrim, the shadow creatures, the things that lurked in the perpetual twilight, were hostile, alien, and powerful. The discovery of the shadow plane was, in the moment, treated as just another triumph of Netheril's exploration, another frontier conquered, another realm mapped and cataloged and filed away in the vast libraries of the flying enclaves. No one understood at the time that the Plane of Shadow would become the refuge that saved the last remnants of Netheril from extinction. And no one understood that the centuries spent in that dark realm would transform those remnants into something that was no longer entirely human. But all of that lay centuries in the future. The Golden Age continued, and the Netherese continued to push boundaries that others had not dared to approach. The elves watched with growing alarm. The dwarves shook their heads in their mountain halls and muttered about the folly of those who build too high. And the Netherese themselves, brilliant, arrogant, magnificent, and blind, looked upon their works and saw nothing but glory stretching endlessly before them. They could not see what was stirring beneath the earth. They could not feel the slow, patient hatred that was building in the darkness below their feet. They could not hear the whispered calculations of creatures who had been suffering in silence for centuries, waiting for their moment. The Farim were coming, and when they came, the Golden Age would end in darkness and desperation, and the greatest civilization in the history of Faerun would begin its long, terrible slide toward oblivion.